decided to move to Portland from a bunker in Afghanistan. I was working for the US Agency for International Development in the Taliban stronghold of Lashkar-Gah. And after a pretty horrific day, I remember thinking to myself, this is not sustainable. And then realizing that I had no idea what sustainable actually meant. I'd spent most of my 20s working in places that had been devastated by conflicts over natural resources, trying to prevent violent extremism through economic development. The theory of change was that if you give people opportunities to rebuild and to give them good jobs that they can be proud of, then they will embrace democracy and capitalism, or at least they won't become terrorists. I had seen it work, but I was burnt out. So I moved to Portland to study sustainability right here at Portland State. I learned about the 3 pillars of sustainability: economic, social, and environmental sustainability that need to be in balance. I was working down the street at the Institute for Sustainable Solutions when I met a researcher from Boeing who told me about a project that he'd been involved in Sheffield, England. This was once a thriving manufacturing hub for cutlery, silverware, and then all of that got offshored, and they went through the same thing that happens when a mill shuts down in a timber town. You all know what I'm talking about. You probably saw it on your way downtown today. But then, the University of Sheffield opened up the Advanced Manufacturing Research Center. Companies like Boeing and Rolls-Royce set up factories on campus. They gave young people great apprenticeships and good job opportunities, and there was real pride in the city again. What if we could do something like that right here? Would I be interested? Honestly, it was a tough question. Growing up, I actually wanted nothing to do with manufacturing. Both my parents were military. My dad emigrated to the US from the Dominican Republic and joined the Navy to get his citizenship. My mom enlisted when she was 17. We moved around a lot, and I graduated high school in Newport News, Virginia, a major shipbuilding and manufacturing port since 1886. When I graduated high school, not long after 9/11, if you weren't going to college, which most of the kids in my high school weren't, you had 2 options. You could become an apprentice in the shipyard, or you could enlist. And at the time, that for sure meant you were going to Afghanistan. But most of the kids I knew said, man, I'll take my chances in the war. That was the attitude that we all had towards manufacturing. These were dull, dirty, dangerous jobs. And in Southern Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy, they were especially undesirable for women and people of color. Still, I can imagine that when the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the one that took my parents to Desert Storm, launched from that shipyard, people must have been so proud. And I was attracted to creating those kinds of jobs right here in Portland. So I signed on to help start up the Oregon Manufacturing Innovation Center, modeled after the center in Sheffield. I oversaw research projects for major manufacturers like Daimler out of the old Kaiser shipyards, and I got a hands-on crash course in manufacturing until the pandemic shut everything down in 2020. That's when I had the idea to start my own radically different metals manufacturing company. Instead of building battleships to fight oil wars, we'd build infrastructure to fight climate change. And I realized the irony here. I worked so hard to be the first person in my family to go to college so I wouldn't be forced to choose between going to Afghanistan or working in a shipyard. And after 10 years of higher education and advanced degrees, I still ended up going to Afghanistan and working in a shipyard. But I am deeply proud of the work that I'm doing today. My company is committed to a quadruple bottom line: people, planet, profit, the 3 pillars of sustainability in action, and a 4th one: purpose. You're all familiar with the great resignation, or the great renegotiation, as I like to think of it, that happened during the pandemic. We all had to make big changes and rethink what was really important to us. And a lot of people came out of that experience demanding more from their jobs than just a paycheck. They want better work-life integration, a truly inclusive culture, and most importantly, they want to do work that matters. We have to provide people with purposeful jobs that they can be proud of, like jobs literally building a more sustainable future for their communities and future generations. Imagine a skilled tradesperson. You probably picture someone like Rocky, one of our most experienced welding mechanics. Rocky serves as a mentor to our apprentices who are just starting out in the trade. He is an excellent welder. This is another excellent welder. Corinne joined our team when she was just 19 years old and about half Rocky's size. She's now legally old enough to drink, but she hasn't gotten any bigger. Doesn't matter. Corinne has had the benefit of learning on the job with experts like Rocky. She's also what some people would call a digital native, meaning she grew up with technology and she's comfortable with the advanced manufacturing skills that we need to make our workers safer and more efficient so we can take on bigger projects and more complex projects. Corinne is learning to be a welding robotic operator. Rocky is probably never going to learn to program and operate a robot, and that's okay. By pairing our tech-savvy newcomers with our most experienced tradespeople, we have reciprocal, multi-generational learning happening. We're able to attract young people and pass on the institutional knowledge before it's too late of our senior tradespeople. And as a team, they are exponentially more efficient, which helps me compete with foreign labor markets that pay a fraction of what we pay for wages. Let's get real. There is no other way we're going to compete with China on price or sheer number of available workers. We have to accept that there is a lack of skilled labor across industry and hire people that we can recruit and train on the job. Recognizing this, we have to expand our vision of what we think a skilled workforce should look like. That means deliberately reaching out to communities that have been underserved and typically neglected and left out of the clean energy economy. They are also the ones who are disproportionately impacted by climate change. So by doing this, we not only expand our recruiting pool, we're actually helping to build a more equitable economy. We need young people like Corinne, for sure. We also need the next generation and the one after that to start getting ready for the clean energy revolution right now. We got to get kids off their screens and working with their hands so they can see if this could be their passion. Invite them and their parents into our production facilities to see that these are good jobs that they can encourage their kids to pursue and be proud of. You can make 6 figures without a college degree doing something you love. Or get some experience before you go earn a degree, have a company like mine help cover the cost while you earn a paycheck. We need engineers, computer programmers, and scientific researchers in factories too. There's such a variety of career opportunities that you may not exist in a manufacturing environment. Doing projects that you will feel meaningfully and rewarded from and drive by on your way to work and think, I helped build that. Even for someone like me. I am not an engineer, and I am not a welder. I'm an economist. Economics is actually how I decided the future of my business. Levelized cost of energy, or LCOE, is an economic measurement used to compare alternative methods of energy production. It is calculated as the total cost of building and operating an energy-generating asset divided by the total electricity that it will produce over its assumed lifetime. So cost over benefit, usually expressed as dollars per megawatt hour. There's a financial asset management company, Lazard, that has been around for about 200 years. They are not experts in energy, they're experts in return on investment. They calculate LCOE to help investors determine where they'll get the most bang for their buck. Last year, Lazard published LCOE data for both renewable and non-renewable sources based on existing information. Nuclear energy was the most expensive, averaging $180 per megawatt hour. Onshore wind was the cheapest, averaging $50. Offshore wind is estimated to be roughly in the middle of those. That's based on all of the wind turbines currently operating and fixed directly to the ocean floor in relatively shallow water off the US Atlantic coast. The Pacific coast drops off dramatically into much deeper water where the wind is more powerful and more consistent and will require floating platforms. Now the platforms raise the cost, but the benefit of the electricity that they'll generate is also much, much higher. No one has built and deployed offshore wind at the scale possible on the Pacific coast, so we have to estimate LCOE. This is not a job for Lazard. This is a job for the scientists at the National Renewable Energy Lab. They estimate that the future LCOE for offshore wind off the southern Oregon coast will be less than $50 per megawatt hour. That's less than fossil fuels, less than every other type of renewable energy, and so much more of it. Just 3 of the massive floating turbines that can be put off the coast of the Pacific would generate more electricity than all of the turbines currently fixed to the ocean floor off the East Coast combined. The economic think tank E2 estimates that the market for California's wind market alone would create 175,000 jobs. These are good paying, high demand, high skill jobs, and add $45 billion to the economy. This is why I'm so excited about floating offshore wind and why it's what we're focused on building next. So what are we waiting for? Well, first we needed the technology to develop turbines big enough to justify the significant cost of putting them on floating platforms in deep water, economies of scale. It's never going to pencil out for the smaller turbines fixed in shallow water. A 15 megawatt turbine, the largest currently in production, is almost as tall as the Eiffel Tower. A floating platform for a turbine of that size could fill a soccer stadium. Oregon and California's combined goal of 8 gigawatts by 2030 would mean 500 Eiffel Tower-sized turbines and 500 soccer stadium-sized platforms built in a relatively short amount of time. That's the equivalent to an Eiffel Tower worth of steel built every week for one straight year, starting January 1st, 2025, which is about 175 business days from now. How are we possibly going to meet the demand? Right now, my company is conducting research for the Department of Energy's Wind Energy Technology Office. We're using robotics and AI to improve the competitiveness and the efficiency of American manufacturing so that these massive components can be built here with American steel and American jobs instead of across the ocean with coal-powered Chinese steel that's shipped here on fossil fuel-powered barges. It makes no sense for us to invest in renewable energy infrastructure and emit all of that unnecessary carbon in the process of building it. The Department of Energy is investing in this research because without the technology that we're developing, the demand is so great, forget competing with China on price. We simply don't have enough people to build what we need domestically. So let's recap everything that we need to do to meet this huge demand and establish a green energy manufacturing hub right here in the Portland metro area. It all comes down to workforce. First, we have to educate kids and their families about manufacturing careers, both in shop class at school and as visitors to our production facilities. As a former skeptic myself, I know that seeing is believing, and it's never too early to expose them. It's also never too late to retrain someone who realizes that they want to do something more hands-on and meaningful with their lives. To that end, we have to expand our workforce and rethink what a skilled labor force is going to look like. That means deliberately recruiting women and people of color who have traditionally been left out of the industry. Big change is going to require big change. But not at the expense of our old-timers. We have to embrace both our skilled tradespeople and those new to the trades just starting out. It is just as critical for us to retain our current workforce as it is for us to attract fresh talent. Most importantly, we need to empower people to affect positive change in their own communities. I believe that the fentanyl epidemic, the homelessness crisis, the violent protest, these are all symptoms of disenfranchisement, anger, despair, the same feelings that terrorist organizations exploit when they're recruiting violent extremists. The solution is the same in Afghanistan, in Sheffield, here in Portland, everywhere. People need purpose. But we're running out of time. So we need to enhance our workforce and make them more efficient, not by replacing people with technology, but by using technology to help them do more with less. Imagine what would happen if we did all of this. Imagine the Portland metro area as a center of excellence for clean energy manufacturing, and the Pacific Northwest leading the nation, leading the world, as a center of innovation and sustainability. I want you all to be proud to have the work that we're doing happening in your city and your backyard. I want you to see the industrial buildings on the waterfront and think, heck yeah, that's where we're building electric trucks and boats, hydropower dam components, and ocean wave energy buoys, and soon, that's where we're building floating offshore wind turbine platforms. This is where we're building a more equitable and green economy that we can all be genuinely proud of. Thank you.